And welcome back to the Financially Simple Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread, and as you know, this is a show dedicated to today's business owner. And I got to tell you, friends, today's business owners are dealing with things that candidly about 3, 4, 5 weeks ago, we had no clue we were going to be facing. There's some information that came out even last night. I'm recording this podcast on March the 19th. And even as late as almost midnight last night, our president signed an interesting bill that's dealing directly with today's medical professionals. Now, we've had several guests on the podcast, and we're trying to dump out as much information for you as possible because we do have an unbelievable number of entrepreneurial doctors, dentists, chiropractors, orthodontists. We have veterinarians, optometrists, you name it, even a lot of MDs who are on their own practice listen to the podcast. And I'm humbled every time we get an unbelievable question from our medical community. So I reached out to one of my dear friends by the name of John Riley to come on the podcast today because I believe in his work intimately. And I wanted John to be able to explain some insight that business owners, and now John deals specifically with dentists, but his insight with what business owners can deal with or how they can handle today's particular circumstances. Now, as always, if you have a question, they're flowing in like crazy on financiallysimple.com/ask Justin. Please leave your questions there. Our team is compiling them really quickly, and we're trying to get some rock star guests like John is today to help answer some of these questions. Or you can connect with me on Facebook. We actually have a public figure page now, and there's thousands of people that connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We got videos going on YouTube trying to just help folks. Today, I've asked John Riley, and John is the vice president of Dental Revolution. I've asked John to come on the show today because John is a master, like Yoda, when it comes to marketing. I have watched John's work and his team's work in our own clients' lives and how they've impacted just so many different entrepreneurial dentists in the marketplace. And friends, I got to tell you, if the strategies work for dentists, no one wants to go to the dentist, right? If they work for dentists, if you're in the entrepreneurial medical field, they'll work for you. If you're like me in the financial field, they'll work for you. The strategies are universal. So I don't want you to discount that, oh, well, John just only works with dentists. His strategies don't work. No, they're beyond. Marketing is universal. And I wanted John to come on the show today because, number one, he's first and foremost, he's a Christian, and he has an unbelievable testimony. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. He spent 18 years in the marketing world. So he has gone through 08, 09, coaching and guiding small business owners how to survive whenever times are tough. Not only when times are tough, but when times are good. One of the cool things about John is his outreach and his ministry desire. You know, we were having coffee and actually grits and eggs. I was eating grits and eggs. He won't do that, but I was eating some grits and eggs and stuff here at a local restaurant here in the South. And he had flown in from the far West Coast. And we were talking about one of his ministries, which is Wake the World, WAKE, Wake the World. John's an avid boater. And this is a not-for-profit Christian organization that helps foster kids with parents. Foster children and those who are incarcerated, kids whose parents are incarcerated, just gives them a little hope. So I think today you're going to be excited to hear John's calm, cool, positive outlook on the things we're dealing with. So John, man, with that introduction, brother, I am so humbled and honored to have you on the show today with us.
Man, that is an introduction of the century. I appreciate that. You're too good to me, Justin.
You're too humble, brother. You're too humble. So John, let's jump right into this, man. You are the expert. I yield to you, Yoda. Okay. So here's my question for you right off the bat. Marketing, man, it gets a bad rap with business owners. Why?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And the core reason behind why is because 95% of marketing firms out there are not using a strategy. It's kind of like going into the dentist and not ever having a treatment plan and just getting whatever the patient wants. The patient would not ever get healthy. So our goal is ultimately to be able to provide a very strategic plan. And if there's not a plan in place, there's no way that you'll absolutely have optimal health in the practice. And so one other source to that is that in a practice is no different when we talk about the developing a strategy. But just like a patient, if I don't know what the doctor's goals, dreams, and desires are before we ever start, like where do you see your practice in 1 to 2, 3 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years? If I don't know those elements, well, I'm only guessing at it's like getting on an airplane and I'm going to take you to beautiful Jamaica, and you go, John, this is beautiful, but I actually wanted to go to Italy, and maybe not Italy right now, um, but but nonetheless, is that if we don't know where you want to end up, there's no way we'll get you there. And so that's where we take a step and really look at what type of practice do you want? What is it that you really want to achieve? Where do you want your net worth to be? Just like we partner with you, Justin, on helping our doctors increase their net worth to types of treatments and so on. If we don't know those things, there's no way that we'll be successful.
So you said a buzzword in there. One of my favorite words is plan. Okay. So I've done several podcasts now in the world of marketing. And buddy, I got to tell you, so many business owners don't know what a marketing plan is. Seems like they hear this idea from a friend, from a colleague, from a acquaintance in another whole different microeconomic environment than what they're dealing with. And they just throw dollars at ideas. So I love the term plan. I'm wondering if you can define for me in the simplest terms possible what you see in a marketing plan.
That's good. Very, very succinctly, it has to do with the actual marketing tactics, you bet. But a marketing plan is so much more than that. It's actually advisory, guiding the doctor when they hit different elements. Like right now, our doctors are actually looking at this time, and they're so grateful to have a plan in place. But certain things like today, this week, last week, next week, these things happen. And so having that plan and figuring out, okay, now how do we adjust our sales with this turbulence, and what do we do? So our plan, when we talk about a doctor and talk about goals, it's not only external tactics, but it's also internal. So when a doctor says to me, John, I want to grow my practice, I want to get new patients, what do I do? And I said, well, where do you want to get your new patients from? And they go, well, what do you mean? I said, well, your practice has 4 quadrants of marketing, and until you actually have a proper plan, so external tactics, internal tactics from a standpoint of phone conversion, retention, internal referrals, how to really take your practice to that next level. So we give them a whole strategy on all of that. So when it comes to a plan, it's what tactics can you do? Like you mentioned when we first met, Justin, a while ago, that you mentioned that you like to have enough pressure, right, in a practice. If there's not enough pressure, well, then the doctor is not going to have enough new patients to be able to be in control and to drive it. So when we take a step back and develop a plan, it's not just external tactics, because we're not here to sell our doctors a website or targeted direct mail or Google or online reputation or internal marketing. Even those are all part of the whole strategy. What we wanted to say is, just like you're not here to, or a dentist is not here to sell me a crown or some veneers. That may be part of the plan, but I don't know what it is the doctor wants to do. So we take a step back, look at their external strategy, what's working and what's not. We'll cut out what's not working and put in what is. And then ultimately we track that. So it has to do with measuring, the phone calls, measuring the emails. We track the every level of that through this process and help our doctors to really put them in the know. So the plan is not just developing a something and sending it out and hoping for the best. It has to do with a very strategic step-by-step process that you can implement one thing at a time. We call it the slide edge principle.
So John, inside there, you said a lot of information. I want to try to come back to one thing that my ears caught that I want to see if you can expound on a little bit more. You mentioned that I like to see pressure. So friends, you've heard me talk about the funnel approach. I believe there should be so many people knocking at your door to conduct business with you that you can choose whom you choose. You can choose whom you're going to offer your services to. And so that's where I talk about pressure. But you mentioned inside there, you mentioned 4 quadrants, and that caught my ear because I love numbers, you know. What are those 4 quadrants that you were referring to?
Absolutely. four quadrants are very, very much this. If you have a pencil and paper, you can make a rectangle and then cut it into 4 squares. The upper left-hand corner is your external tactics, which we call new people groups. These are people that you don't already attract and don't know who you are. So new people groups is 1. Phone conversion is lower left. Then to the right of that, the bottom right-hand corner is going to be retention. So how are we doing retaining those patients? And then the upper right-hand corner is internal referrals. They all feed. So there's a funnel right above the new people groups. They funnel into one another. And then from internal referrals, that goes down to conversion. So there's this whole referral engine that has to happen, but all 4 of those cylinders need to be firing. If 1 or 2 of those are broken, the doctor's spending a lot of money on marketing where they're wasting a lot of revenue and throwing a bunch of cash out in the bonfire out in the parking lot.
Oh, I got you. So let me, friends, in the past, I've talked about the ANSOF matrix, ANSOFF, ANSOF matrix. And John, with what you just talked about, the 4 quadrants, you can almost lay that identically over the ANSOF. I don't expect you to know that term. Maybe you do, but you're dealing with almost very similar concepts as the ANSOF matrix. So friends, on the Financially Simple podcast, our graphics team are going to take that illustration that John just tried to articulate, and they'll move that to a graphic. So check it out on financiallysimple.com under this particular blog. You'll see it according to John Riley's name. And we'll try to put that into a graphic form, John. That's awesome. So let me ask you.
I can provide that too for you. Yeah.
Hey, brother, thank you. If that'll help us greatly, help somebody from having to remake something. But let me ask you this then, John. I can't tell you, man, I hear often, Justin, what is the best method of marketing? John, what is the best method of marketing?
That's a good question. Well, it all depends. It depends on what the goals are of the practice. It not to be coy or try to be elusive here, but it really just depends, because targeted direct mail is a phenomenal external tactic. But if you're looking for just general crown and bridge patients, excellent. Family patients, younger families, excellent. But if you're looking for, let's say, IV sedation patients or implant patients, that's not the route I would go. And so we are called what we call tactic agnostic. We don't care what tactic we're doing for you, just like Justin doesn't care what fund you're investing in. It's not his fund. It's not our tactic. It's really saying, here's what we're going to do. Even though we create everything, we don't care what we're doing for a doctor. So we do everything except for TV, radio, and billboards. For our 1 to 2 doctor practices, those 3 elements have not seemed to have a good ROI. So if they don't have a good ROI, we will not recommend them.
Well, when you're talking about money, let me ask you the question. How much should the average, let's say dentist, and I'm going to pull it out, as we unwrap this dentist conversation in a second, but let's say with dentists right now, in your experience with these entrepreneur dentists and doctors, how much do they budget toward marketing? Do you look at it from a gross collection standpoint? Do you look at it from a net revenue? How do you advise?
Yeah, good question. We really look at it at a gross collection standpoint. So at the end of the year, let's say if you're at 800,000 right now in collections and you want to be $1 million practice, well, we set it to say, okay, if it's obtainable and it's doable, then we'll set that mark at $1 million and say that's where we want to be. So at the end of the year, you'll look at your percentage of marketing budget, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But we want to make sure that you're within a window. So for instance, on $1 million practice, depending on how much marketing you currently have, what your area is, your demographics, we'll figure out to say the average practice is budgeting between 3 to 10%. We have seen other practices go up to 10 to 14% in certain windows because they need it. Like for instance, they're bringing on an associate and they need it in a hurry, and then we can back down from there. Or they're doing a startup, it's going to be a whole lot more than 10% because they have nothing. So it really just depends on that. But the average practice is between 3 to 10. Our average practice that we market with is roughly the top ones are doing between 5 to 8% on average.
So what I'm hearing from you, John, is that that's not that dissimilar than the rest of the business world. We actually there's some statistics that we put on the Financially Simple podcast in the past that shows that business owners as a whole, if they're trying to grow their business as a whole, that 10% number seems to fall in line across many SIC codes or many NAIC codes or many different demographics, depending on which way you want to look at it. And the same thing is true that whenever a business is trying to accelerate rapid penetration to the marketplace, we see that 20% sometimes is not that far off. So it seems like your numbers fall very close in line with the dental community to the general public. So let me ask you the follow-up question then. Let's say someone is spending 8, 9, 10, 11, 12%, whatever that number is. How long does it take marketing to work? And I'll caveat it with this, John, as you're formulating your answer there. My brother owns a pool company, and in the pools, like swimming pool business, they are told that it takes around about 13 to 14 months before you break even on your marketing. In the financial world, it could be as many as 24 months. Now, in the dental world, how long is the typical ROI for break even? How long does it take?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Generally speaking, as far as just even the break even point is somewhere between 6 to 12 months. And the reason that is because of the prophy cycle. The very first visit, the average patient sees a doctor is roughly $200 to $400 on the initial exam and cleaning, right? Just to get to know. But the top two things, the reason why it's so low is because the patient doesn't trust the doctor yet. Once that trust happens, there's that transfer of trust, then the patient has urgency, then they're going to follow through, because trust and urgency are the top two reasons why they're going to buy dentistry. So if we can help to build that trust and urgency sooner rather than later, they're more apt to follow through on treatment sooner rather than later. Therefore, we can cut that down a bit. But the average practice, we always say, listen, 6 to 9 months is where you're going to start to see that kind of break even point, and up to a year, depending on what it is that you're doing and how aggressive your plan is.
So John Riley here, friends who you're listening to, he is the vice president again of Dental Revolution, and they are a dental only marketing firm. But John, given the circumstances of the coronavirus and I'm going to call it turbulence that we're dealing with in the small business community, I want to take your advice outside of the dental world just for a second in this next series of questions, because yes, we do in our firm, as you well know, we work with almost 100 dentists right now nationally as business advisors. And we often say, our job is to try to help them double their net worth every 3 to 5 years. That's what we focus on. And I
Right.
know that you're highly focused in on dental marketing, but we also have a lot of business owners. We have business owners that listen to this podcast, John, who have revenues of $50 million a year and up. So we have a huge amount of following in various types of business disciplines. That being said, John, man, if you were to give sage wisdom out at this point, I know you have it. I know you're well versed in this area. What truth or what life would you speak in today's business owners in terms of marketing at this particular point during this uncertainty of the coronavirus?
That's a really good question. And quite frankly, every doctor calling us right now is asking that exact same question. What do I do? What's the best avenue? So there's a couple different roads. Is that if you have the financial wherewithal to be able to sustain this, as far as be able to consistently position yourself, well, just like Amazon right now, Amazon is having to hire 100,000 people because people are at home still buying. They're still doing the things that they do, but they're not outside greeting people and so on. But they are purchasing. They're making buying decisions. They're still planning. They may not be going to the dentist right now, or going into a bunch of shops and going to furniture stores and walking around per se, but they're absolutely planning, researching, and so on. So doctors say, well, should I not market my practice right now? Or if you're a non-dental practice and you want to say, should I stop my external marketing? Well, the thing of it is this: is if I was at home and I was looking for XYZ manufacturing, if I was looking for whatever dental office or whatever furniture store, and you decided to take off your marketing, well, now you're no longer visible, and your competition will get it, get that business day one, that the curtains kind of open up. So my recommendation to my doctors is this, is that let's take a step back and understand that, first of all, we've gone through a lot together, meaning the country itself. So we've made it through a lot. I personally I saw the second tower crash myself when I was in New York, and I just knew that hey, I'm not God, but God is in control and I'm not, and we're gonna get through this. And Thursday I left driving across the country, and by Saturday I saw a plane flying. I just knew in the U.S. we are stronger than anybody, and we are going to get through this. And so this is no different. So if when we talk about this time right now, it's not about giving up, but it's about working on your business, not just in it. And it's super important in these times. Work on training your team, working on sales strategies, working on doing things in the community, getting out in the community, giving back, going to give to shelters, do things that you can do to impact the community. Not that you're doing it to get visibility, but in turn you probably will, and the word will get out, the type of people you are, the type of business owners you are. And so it's all about helping right now and making sure that you're advancing the craft of your team in this element is so important, and also giving them hope. I was just sharing with my team today about some of the fascinating things about going on with Corona right now. China has closed down its last coronavirus hospital because there's no support. There's no new cases to support them. Okay, new cases, again, not financial. There's no new cases. There's all the Apple stores are open once again in China because, again, there's no threat. So there's so much going on in those aspects, but also in Cleveland. Cleveland has now created a test where people are getting better in hours rather than in days. So there's so many positive things going on that the media is not going to tell you, because it doesn't rebroadcast what they're doing very well. So they have to play this negative role, where I would just say for you, business owner out there, is to be that positive influence, to be that voice of reason, to be that voice of hope for your teammates, for the people around you, for your neighbors, for everybody around you, to say, hey, listen, we're gonna make it through this, and we're gonna be stronger than ever before, because they need it.
John, man, you almost, well, not verbally, you articulate that much better than I can. I've said throughout the podcast, this last 5 or 6 different episodes that we recorded just this week, just for our listeners, that I will bet on the entrepreneur, the American entrepreneur, every day of the week, because we have this certain vim and vigor within our being that we will charge hell with a water pistol to take care of those whom we love. And oftentimes for us small business owners, that's our family, of course, but that's also our team members. That's also our patients in this case, or our clients, our vendors. So I'm seeing and I'm hearing this American entrepreneurship just rising to the occasion right now. And once again, like we saw way back in, well, it seems like way back now for us, when the Twin Towers fell, are you actually seeing doctors in your case rise and try to be leaders within their community, to be the controlled change agent for their communities at this point?
Oh, absolutely. Is it the dentists that we work with we actually have this whole spirit of saying you need to be one in the community. Even before all this happened, is that our doctors are the ones that are following, right? The ones that are actually applying these core principles are the ones that are getting out into the community and being a part of it, giving back. And so these situations are easy to do if they already have those connections and they're actually doing those things. But it could just be one small thing and say, hey, listen, how can we make an impact today? The thing that cripples a lot of business owners is it's that whole paralysis by analysis, right? Is it trying to think of all these different things that you could do? No, just pick one thing. Just do one thing, do it today. Then that's going to lead to something else, and that'll lead to another thing. And you can start to see this organic. I mean, that's how Wake the World started with us. I just decided to pull for one event, And then immediately after that, I knew that God was tapping on my heart that I had to do it. Now there's 200 foster children showing up at an event with Buffalo Wild Wings giving 1,500 wings and pizza joints giving 40 pizzas and over 200 to 300 volunteers. And I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy at all. I just know that you have to take a step forward. So just do one small thing, and all you have to do is write on a piece of paper, what's that one small thing? What can I do today, and do it? And you'll start to get this fire in your belly.
So my children were watching Frozen 2 over the weekend, the Disney cartoon movies, and I was in and out of reading a book, and I heard the Olaf, which is a little snowman on that show, make this statement that captivated my thoughts all weekend. He said, "When you don't know what to do, the only thing to do is the next right thing." And man, John, whenever I heard that from the Disney cartoon, I instantly tweeted it out, instantly shared it out, and said Olaf, right? So this little snowman.
Awesome.
Let me ask you one last question, brother, as we wrap this thing up. It's a question that I'm anxious to hear you answer this. I didn't prepare you for this question, as I often don't do any of our listeners. But with your wisdom, your experience, the influence that you have, that God's given you at this point, if you had to share one and only one pearl of wisdom to today's business owner with whatever they're dealing with and whatever the financial, emotional, whatever that is, what would that one pearl of wisdom be that John Riley, Vice President of Dental Revolution, I mean, the one, the only, what would he tell today's business owner?
Easy. Don't stop at 211 degrees. Because when you talk about all the things that are coming in front of you right now, you could start working at it and start the ball rolling and let's say trying to get through these times. But you just still have lukewarm water. You have never got to that boiling point, and you think that, oh, there's no way I'm going to get there. You have to take a step back and say, do I still have lukewarm water, or is there boiling water here? Because if we do, now we have momentum. Now we have this ability to move mountains. Oftentimes, business owners get stuck at 200 degrees, 205 degrees, 206 degrees. They don't quite get to 212 degrees, whatever it is, whether it's hiring people, whether it's marketing, whether it's understanding their product at the level that they need to. And I just say this, is that do not stop at 211 degrees, because you put all the effort in with zero result. My recommendation is get to that boiling point to where you're pushing through the ceiling of complexity, because right now in these times, we need leaders. We don't need managers. We need leaders. Leaders create other leaders.
Buddy, that is amazing. Great sage wisdom there from my dear friend, John Riley. So look, folks, you've been listening to John Riley, Vice President of dentalrevolution.net. We'll have his link to his website in the description below, whether you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, whatever it is. Check out the description below and check out John Riley's company, Dental Revolution. John, man, thanks so much for coming on the show today. I know that you have helped the listeners because you've helped me. You've actually encouraged me, as you always do. So, brother, thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. And brother, I appreciate what you do for all your listeners, and for all you listeners, may God richly bless you in your quest to be excellent and to do everything with just that fervency. I thank God for you guys.
So look, guys, life is hard. We know that life is hard, but life is good. We still have toilet paper in the United States. Life is good. Life can be frustrating. I know we're dealing with some frustrating times for many of us that we didn't see coming. That's okay. Money does not have to be frustrating. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Now, look, you've got to go out and make it a great day. It's not going to happen unless you make it one. Y'all take care. We'll see you next time.